Alright, so today we'll be doing a full setup on the Rickenbacker 4003 SW. For that we'll need a Phillips #1 screwdriver, a 1.3mm X socket for the saddle adjustment, 4mm X key for the truss rod, some metal polish for the frets, a set of caliper gauges, set of strings, obviously, a string action gauge, and some F1 oil to clean the fretboard. So first we'll take some measurements. The relief first, caliper gauge, so it is not 8,000, it's probably closer to 15. Is too much. Is a little bit too much. We're somewhere between 12 or 13,000 for the relief. Where did I put my pen? There it is. $12,000. And for the action, let's remove the Capo first. We are at about 80,000 on the bass side, 70 on the treble, about 2¼ on bass and 2mm on treble. Now we can remove the strings, or not remove the strings entirely, but slacken them off just a little bit. Remove the truss rod cover. There we go. All right, we're in. Quarter turn. Just gonna tune her out. Alright, now we're back in tune. We can recheck if we are closer to our target of about 8,000, give or take. We're at 10, so we could give it just a little bit more. Use that one from Music Nomad that has one for electric guitar, acoustic, and bass, and classical. Bass is at 8,000. And we're still not quite there yet. Perfect, we're at about 7, give or take. Let's see. It's the 8,000. Thousand is too thick. Oh yeah, we're at about 7.5. Perfect, exactly where I want it to be. And let's see if our action lowered a bit. About 1.75 on bass. 1.5 on the treble. It is buzzing pretty badly. Mostly on the E string. What we might want to do is just raise the saddle a little bit. we might want to give it just a little bit less relief. Make sure that this is still in tune. Or is it detecting that as an E? Now it's better. This one buzzes a bit. Oh, remove a little bit. That's a tad better. Now we should be at 8 flush. Yep, 8,000 flush. Now we can remove the strings. And we'll adjust the action later and the intonation later with the new set of strings. Use that piece of paper on here so I don't mess up the wood. All right. Now we want to polish the frets. For that, we need to tape off around them so we don't remove any wood with the metal polish. Instead of metal polish, you could use some very fine steel wool like 00, 000. I don't have any, and that Autosol metal polish was recommended by a luthier, so that's what I am going to use. Very important also to note is that when applying painter's tape on your instrument, you need to make sure that you're using the blue one, not the green one. The adhesive on the blue one is less tacky, and if you have a neck with a more fragile finish, you are not going to strip it out when you are going to remove the tape after you're done. So let's do all the way up to 11th fret and then to the remaining frets one by one. It is not sealed. Great. probably want to use a shop towel for that because it is abrasive. Back here. Fold it up a few times so you don't end up going through the cloth. Well, you might end up going through the cloth anyway, but it will last you a bit longer. You really don't need much. This is probably going to be too much for one fret. So we'll see. I was able to do 2 frets with that much, and even then it was probably still too much. Look at all the crap that we got out of that. Flashlight. Sure we didn't forget anything. Need to go over again with a fresh cloth at some point anyways. You don't need to put a lot of pressure either. So I am not going for showroom finish here, I'm just going for cleaner, because I probably wouldn't be doing that manually. For a showroom finish I'd use a Dremel or something. I have one, but it is in a box somewhere and I don't want to look for it. So the Rickenbacker 4003 does have stainless steel frets, so they are a little bit more solid than the silver nickel alloy that's usually used for frets. So that is why I am not worried about really wearing through the frets just by cleaning them up with metal polish. If it would have been say my P bass or the jazz bass with more standard fret wire, I would have used something else. Probably not necessarily Autosol. So one thing to note with that kind of metal polish is that it will stain your fingers. It's visible, but it is starting to stain my thumb and my index finger. But it's alright, it can be washed, I think. If you have nitro glove or latest glove, it would probably be a good idea to wear them. Again, I have some, but they're in another room and I didn't want to get up to get them. So if you put too much pressure with that kind of metal polish, what can happen is that you'll wear through the painter's tape and you'll start digging into your fretboard, and that would not be good. A little bit more difficult to fix or camouflage once the damage is done on the fretboard. And the fret rocker just fell off. And I think we're good to take. Let's take another towel, just give a once over here. You could be sending me an email at this time. Alright, so far so good. Nothing went through the tape. And nothing's coming off with the tape, which would be a problem because this is an unfinished board and neck. That way, there we go. So this one was done, this one was done as well. This one wasn't. I don't know how visible this will be on the video, but there's a major difference between the polished and unpolished frets. Let's put back the camera here. Adjust that again so we can actually see stuff. There we go. And we'll just do one fret at a time for the time being, or I could cut the tape in half, but I don't want to do that. And new shop towel that we are going to fold a few times. A little bit of polish. Alright, what did I do with my other towel? Doesn't matter, let's take another one. These things are cheap anyway, really useful. In a pinch you could use a standard paper towel, but they are not going to last you nearly as long as these, because again, this is an abrasive and you'll go through the standard paper pretty fast. You know what? Guess I could just try to got a few layers of this with a knife. If you have a bandsaw, you can actually take the bigger rolls and cut them to the width that you actually need. I say the bigger rolls because they are usually easier to cut, but you could do that with these rolls as well. So I don't have a bandsaw, so I'm not doing that. Solo Music sells rolls of smaller tapes for about $10, but there's not nearly as much as you'll have in the standard roll. So if you do cut it with an X-Acto knife, just make sure that you're using the straight side that is facing outward against the fret. So you have a straight line. Alright, 4 to go. A little bit bigger than I expected, but that'll do. Excellent. Remove all of those. Nothing bled through, which is excellent. Dang it, there we go. All right. So because this is an unfinished fretboard, I will be putting a little bit of F1 oil on it. Just to clean it a little bit. I won't be putting a lot. I won't be putting it on the board itself. I will be putting it on the towel. First, let's recap this. Put that back in the box. There you go. Now, microfiber cloth. Yeah, let's take another cloth than this one. Green, perfect. Just a little bit, not too much. And then we are going to wipe it down with one of the shop cloth because I don't want it to stay on it for too long. Because even though it is technically an unfinished fretboard, it does have a little bit of something on it that prevents most oils from being absorbed. And if we just leave it like this, it's just going to dry out and get sticky, and we don't want that. This is mostly for cleaning it up, because it doesn't really need to be much more than cleaned. Yeah, it is a little dry in my office, so that not really protruding enough to be worth getting the file out and finding the fret heads. So they are going to remain as they are. Now we can close that back up, put that away to be cleaned, and we can put new strings back on, or put the new strings on because they weren't installed previously. We're going to install them now. It's about there. Now need to be moved. Here more. And that one as well. Trying to get it as centered as I can. Alright. So, what I usually do is leave about distance of 2 tuning pegs of string to wind around the post. But in that case, it's going to be about till the end of the headstock, so slightly out the camera. Great, everything's falling apart. So, no, don't focus there. There we go. So, this string is going here, and so I'm going to leave about until here of string to wind around the post, so I have plenty to work with once the tuning is done. And I think I removed too much on that one. Yep, I removed too much. Well, in those situations, we have a second pack of string that I didn't plan to use. Something had to go wrong, obviously. So where would have been the fun if everything went perfectly. Great. Now, one thing that is somewhat important. Where did I put that again? There it is. Big bands, not sauce. Not necessarily required, but some type of lubrication at the nut is definitely going to help with tuning stability and just overall tuning pleasantness, I guess. Don't need to put a lot. Tiny drop in. Come on. There we go. Go. Tiny drop. And a tiny drop. There we go. Does come with some applicators. Because it's on the base, the nut slots are thick enough that we don't really need those. Alright, so let's get our tuner out again. What is vibrating like that? Is it the saddle? Or is it... Something's vibrating. I'm not sure what exactly, but something is vibrating. Ooh, it is very flat. So everything's flat, which is unpleasant. But before we check that, let's check relief. To see where we are sitting, because we may need to readjust it just a hair. So are we still close to 8? We are, so the relief is fine. Which means that is it this one or this one? So it should be one of these two. Oh, it's the 3:30 seconds. Awesome. Alright, so we need to shorten all the strings. Move that this way. So I can actually do this. Probably have to remove a bit of tension. That is probably going to be too much. It was not enough. So let's lengthen it more. Perfect. Same thing. We need to lengthen the string. I still lengthen the string, we have to shorten it. to take that without getting the camera to fall over. Well, that's weird. Now everything is sharp. So the action seems to be really low. We are at 1.5 on the bass and 1.25 on treble, which is way too low. That needs to get up by a fair margin. So let's raise the action a bit. Ah, dang it. There we go. Okay, so now we are at 1.5, 3 tune. Minimal buzzing. So we are at about 1.75. So 2mm on the bass side. So about 70,000. And about 50,000 on the treble, or 1.5-ish millimeters. It is low. It's not overly buzzing. And it is a Rickenbacker, so Yeah, still stretching a bit. I am tempted to maybe give it a little bit more relief. Just a tad. Double check again what the relief is. I believe it's at 9. Do I... No, I'm going to keep the relief. Find my radius gauge. Radius gauge. So this is a 10-inch. Oh yeah, I have a 10. 10. There we go. So 10-inch. Strings are fine. Radius is correct, what I can see. But I will still raise them just a little bit. Alright. Should have removed the capo before doing that, but that's fine. You're still kind of in tune. Alright, a solid 2mm, 1.8. Much better. that is pretty much all we have to do. Don't need to clean up anything else. The cover is fine. So the only thing left is to put the truss rod cover back and clean up after ourselves. Don't need to overly tighten those screws. You don't want to strip the screws or the wood. Just like this. There we go. Alright. And that will be all for this setup. It took way longer than I expected it to take, but that's alright. We're not in a hurry. So we started with about 15,000 of relief, went down to 8.5, 9, and the action remained roughly stable at about 2 millimeters on bass side and 1.8-ish on the treble. And we now have super shiny frets and brand new strings. All right.